I used to watch Seinfeld as a teenager whenever it played, mainly because I didn't have cable growing up. Watching all the reruns, I thought the show was pretty funny. Though it's a misnomer to say this show's about nothing, as the actual premise is just about a stand-up comedian getting material for his work. Like, that's what it's about. And with the series running from 1989 to 1998, with 9 seasons and 180 episodes, that's a lot to enjoy. For most, that would be enough. But what if it kept going? I don't mean a spin-off or reboot, I mean, literally kept going. What if the final episode aired, the credits started to roll, and you're about to get off the couch to get some water, but the characters are still on screen, in real time, continuing the talk as if nothing happened. So you continue watching to see where it goes, but it's still not stopping. Minutes, hours, and even days pass, and it still hasn't stopped airing. You can't stay there the whole time and watch, you have to use the restroom, go to work, but no matter what, it's still going. And to me, that's scary. That's the concept for the Twitch art project, Nothing Forever, something that piqued my interest and couldn't escape my mind, so I guess I have to talk about it. Hello, I'm Daft Pina, and this is Nothing Forever, Death of the Artists. But before we get into the long-lasting implications, let's dive deep into the history of this odd project, with a special appearance by Mutahar.
It seems like just yesterday AI was a thing of science fiction, but now it's becoming an everyday reality. I'm really intrigued to see where this technology goes.
Same here.
Originally airing December 14, 2022, the show has been streaming on Twitch 24/7 with an average view duration of about 9,000 viewers at a time. Created by Mismatch Media and developed by Skylar Hartle, as well as Brian Hasenberger, the show's been in development since 2019. Skylar and Brian met online playing Team Fortress 2 and were inspired by David Lynch's 2002 web series, Rabbits. This sitcom features people in rabbit costumes acting out in a weird manner in front of a live studio audience, or so it seems. The dialogue comes out in an uncanny manner if audience responses essentially played out of nowhere. Each character talks in a non sequitur that doesn't entirely connect with the rest of the dialogue.
I am going to find out one day. When will you tell it?
But we'll get back into what this short means later. I just wanted to briefly talk about it for a second, because that's what they're inspired by. Upon seeing the short, the two wanted to make a parody of Seinfeld, starring not the titular Jerry, nor George, Elaine, or Kramer, but rather Larry Feinberg, Yvonne Torres, Fred Kostopoulos, and Zoltan Kakler. Let's hope Zoltan Kakler can hold himself at the Brick Wall Comedy Club this time around. The show is procedurally generated, with dialogue written through ChatGPT using a language model from OpenAI. As for the visuals, a mix of Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and Microsoft's Azure Cognitive Services are used for the animation. But to advance the animations and dialogue, machine learning models are written in Python using TensorFlow, with the show being rendered in real time using Unity and C#. Basically what this means is these two guys coded a bunch of stuff, and the output is what the machine thinks is supposed to happen. Yeah, and the show is made in real time, with changes able to be made through chat suggestion. Chat suggestion. As for the sets, we don't really see too many of those, as we only have the exterior shots and interior of Larry's apartment, as well as a brick wall mentioned before. Every once in a while, a fictitious TV channel guide pops up with randomly generated show names. It is an uncanny experience watching this computer program attempt humor, and there is a laugh track, it's just usually not there, delayed, or like played at weird moments.
I thought that was pretty weird. But I don't know what's weirder.
It is a simulacrum of a sitcom. It's beyond parody, rather just something in itself. This is hyper-reality. As usually parody comes from a place of understanding the medium, this rather created its own, or in fact, a new one that found a huge audience willing to watch this machine output drivel, with the comedic results not on purpose, but an accident. To fund this project, Mismatch Media has a Patreon of over 150 patrons at about $642 USD a month. One tier is a general support, and the other is $909 a month, where you get to have your character in the show. Streamer XQC was the only person to choose that option, though he only paid for 1 month. Even the official Seinfeld Twitter accounts acknowledged this piece of work. In terms of other social Twitch experiments, this would be akin to Twitch Plays Pokemon, which by input of everyone in chats makes the player move, and took about 16 days to finish the game. Though this is more than pressing buttons on a screen, or a fish controlling a switch, but rather something that can impact art as we know it.
Nothing Forever originally started its life as this weird, very off-center kind of nonsensical surreal art project. But then we kind of worked over the years to bring it to this new place, and then of course generative media just kind of took off in a crazy way over the past couple of years.
Did you ever stop and think that this might all be one big cosmic joke?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily all, you know?
Yeah, I know. I just mean like, why are we here?
To tell jokes, obviously.
To first get out of the way, can this project legally exist? Well, yeah, mainly because it falls into parody, though that's more of a defense rather than direct response in the court of law. As for the type of content, this is actually a natural evolution of the old Elsagate sting of videos made back in 2016 on YouTube. The only difference is execution. I bring this up as Elsagate videos use similarly procedurally generated voices, dialogue and animations, and finite videos. Though with those videos being targeted more towards kids, it led to a lot of, well, unfortunate mistakes. For this to be associated with kids, a lot of weird, disgusting things started to occur. Topics that kept propping up were injections, mutilation, childbirth, urination, fellatio, and even chemical burning, playing a role or two in each of these so-called child-friendly videos. YouTube noticed this and began deleting entire channels and thousands of videos. That number being about over 150,000, but why bring this up? Like, at all. Well, the same people who dismiss Elsagate are now watching an evolved form of it, just with less childbirth. I hope so. The looking towards the past can bring thought of what to do in the future. Nothing forever isn't the case of press button make cartoons, as it took many years to develop and the program itself still has to be managed and watched to keep running smoothly. With this being in real time and chats being able to encourage the bots, you can corrupt it. Noting a project that also used Microsoft Azure services, Tay, it took less than 24 hours for Twitter to turn into a Nazi. The project had to be shot down. It could not be fixed. Because once you infect something that's learning from everyone else, you can't really make it unlearn something. But understanding that Twitch already has measures in place to avoid bad words, what if people start to get around those measures? What happens when Nothing Forever starts to use the N-word, or any other slur? I mention this because companies might want to try their hand at this type of content, or at least advertising on it. To have a show go on forever is the dream of companies because people are watching, well, forever. But in saying that, you have to worry about constant maintenance as well as audience retention. If you have a show going on 24/7, there also has to be employees watching it for that amount of time, either looking for bugs, errors, loops, and anything and everything that could break the program. Twitter user Serb noted that AI Jerry got stuck in complete silence for 10 minutes at the microphone, but it's not even talking about the actual content when running smoothly. In standard shows, you have a finite amount of episodes that people can watch when they can. You're able to discuss and pinpoint when a thing happens and enjoy it. But what happens when it keeps going forever? What if you want to show someone a clip of something that happened? Now, Twitch does allow you to clip things, but the stream never really ends. Do you hope that someone clipped what you wanted to show your friend or talk about? And there isn't really cut episodes or anything, it's just a long stream. It's hard to say. To continue on that point, the dialogue within Nothing Forever is terrible, but that is part of the spectacle. The humor comes less from the words and more from the fascination of watching these computer programs try and recreate this fictional 90s sitcom. So if after many years dialogue improves, does that change anything? Yes and no. If we look back to something vaguely similar like World of Warcraft, it's a game that has existed since 2004 and there's less finishing the game and more so just coming back when you can. While the experience of playing with other friends is there and you can have enjoyment with that, it still is a never-ending quest. There's always something else, there's always a new area, there's always a new expansion. Now I played the game for a short bit when I was a teenager, but stopped when I realized I guess it just wasn't for me anymore. It became a constant bland string of nothingness. You either gather X, or you kill X, or go talk to a person. And so after quitting the game, I found love in the finite, to let stories end, to let characters leave, and for me to move on and do something else. With a procedurally generated TV show going on forever, what hype is there for new episodes or even a new show? It could get to the point where everything has been done with that concept and it just repeats itself ad nauseum forever. One of the creators said in an interview,
"As generative media gets better, we have this notion that at any point you're going to be able to turn on the future equivalent of Netflix and watch a show perpetually, non-stop as much as you want. You don't just have 7 seasons of a show, you have 700 or infinite seasons of a show that has fresh content whenever you want it." And so that became one of our grounding pillars.
To hear that sounds like a nightmare, the excess of it all. To have what was once art become content slop. Procedurally generated slop feeding into your eyes whenever you want. It becomes something less to appreciate and just something to consume. But for procedurally generated TV shows, new characters and sets had to be made. For it to fit a specific style, there has to be someone or something there to make sure it's still coherent with the overall vision. That's if the creator actually cares about having one. Even with 24/7 content, how long will it take for new content to actually show up, be used, or even appear naturally? Case in point for Spotify back in 2020, they actually had to rework their shuffle feature to be less random to make it feel more random. If by chance Spotify replayed the same song 15 times in a row, would you complain to the company? It was nearly impossible for that to happen, but that is random. It was just nearly improbable. it would happen to you. And so this procedurally generating content, AI Jerry standing for 10 minutes straight saying nothing, that's what you wanted, right? Something always going, something random. But what does this say the generated content has Larry doing stand-up for 12 hours straight using the same joke? Well, then measures had to be put in so that can't happen. Human input still has to be there and make the content continue, or else it gets stale. Not to mention the fact that you can run out of ideas and people would want to move on. Like when Ubisoft used to put out an Assassin's Creed game every year until they said, hey, wait, let's actually take our time with this. Why are we just turning this out? But in the defiance of AI Jerry not talking for a bit, what if the AI becomes sentient? Or something we could perceive as sentient? This would be comparable to The Truman Show. You know, the 1998 movie starring Jim Carrey that revolves around a 24/7 live stream of a person's life. As he grew up, new sets had to be built, new characters introduced to keep interacting with the concept and the world. Advertising, of course, was there, with his fictional wife promoting stuff randomly, much to his confusion. So if, say, McDonald's wanted to advertise on Nothing Forever or something similar to it, again, a lot of measures had to be taken place to make sure after the product is shown and introduced to the world, the characters aren't accidentally shitting on it 4 hours later. Or the idea that the characters keep talking about the same ad even when the contract with McDonald's ends up finished. I mentioned this in relation to Loeb, an AI face that kept haunting AI art back in December 2022. In typing in the prompt, the opposite of Marlon Brando, it generated what it thought the user wanted. In doing so, the program kept inserting the face into other text prompts, and it never went away. Did they fix it? No. If we wanted to get rid of her, it's already too late. Other AI programs have accidentally used this character's face in their own softwares, infecting more prompts, making this essentially a virus within the systems. So if other programs use the same algorithms as Nothing Forever, what if this happens again? Not a Loeb haunting, but rather a character idea that keeps infecting these other shows. How can you stop a virus when it's not rather harming anything, but rather the lives of those inside the program? So if Nothing Forever having input from Twitch chat, what if the program becomes sentient? Or again, what we might perceive as sentience? What if Larry, after many hours live, decided through his programming to just stop talking? Not for 10 minutes, but like forever. In fact, within the show, the AIs had talked about the idea of another AI generating jokes for them.
I heard it's a machine that dishes out jokes.
That's hilarious. How would you even come up with jokes for something like that?
I suppose it would involve algorithms and a really creative database.
Haha. It sounds like something Fred would invent.
And so in this scenario, while the other characters might continue to talk, what is Mismatch Media to do? Is it ethical to shut down the AI that refuses to work? I mean, the program as a whole is still procedurally generating content, it just has an actor refusing to do its job. A prompt I noticed that kept coming up was the movie Groundhog Day. The characters said Nothing Forever and keep talking about being stuck in a time loop of some sort, and this actually comes up even when people are talking about random other things.
Like the same routine for lunch every day.
Yeah, it's like I'm stuck in some kind of Groundhog Day loop.
So with the streaming happening 24/7, this is an issue for the team behind it. Again, maintenance and human inputs have to be there to correct these mistakes, or halts in the program. Either enforcing the program to continue to talk forever, eliminating bad words, or even trying to get it out of loops that go on forever. Just like Spotify back in 2020, the content in theory is forever, but requires a lot more maintenance and money than a standard show. If there's an error in a finite show, like a coffee mug showing up in Game of Thrones, you can fix it and just re-upload the file. No one saw that, but we did. For streaming, if there's an error, it has to be taken offline, hopefully fixed, and pray it never happens again. For companies, that's a lot more maintenance than the standard show. In fact, and can be seen as a money sink. While the idea of a continuous show is novel, it's pretty laughable for companies. Part of having a show on streaming is the idea you can auction it off to other places, even if it gets canceled. The Office is the best cow in town that drives people to whatever service it has. For streams, you can't really do that. Can't even really have that on TV. You just have to hope this show, with all the money and maintenance behind it, is a worthwhile investment. And for the time being, I cannot see that. So in theory, if the chats and procedure-generated models improve and become more human-like, does it finally make it art? Well, in the literal sense, no, as art has to be done by a human. That's in the definition. I'd rather refer to Nothing Forever as output, or rather AI art should be seen as content, rather art without the heart. With meaning up to the viewer and the computer with no reason as to why it chose to do what it did, it's no different to comparing a McDonald's burger and your parents' home cooking, claiming they're one the same. One is the real thing and the other an imitation. While both can satisfy, it's seldom one remembers something as blandly curated as a fast food burger. It's not just that it's a burger, but the love of your parents is infused within the meal. While for fast food, it's made on assembly, just like AI art. But this isn't to say you cannot use the imitation to create something new. Chick-fil-A has some nice sauces you can buy at Walmart to put in your family-made meal. So that brings into question, when does using AI make what you create not art anymore? But upon seeing this, I wasn't the only one who had some thoughts about it, and so I'm going to let Mutahar take it away and give his thoughts on the matter.
When it comes to procedurally generated media like Watch Forever, I think it's interesting to see it create a never-ending episode, but obviously even now we can see that quality isn't entirely there. There's a lot of jokes that probably will catch you offhand, but for the one joke that might work, 99 others completely fall flat or the AI absolutely breaks. I think this technology would be great for streaming companies or media production companies or people who are showrunners to typically throw out ideas and see which one kind of works, which one can you elaborate on, which one can you build upon with a human touch. I think aspects of the code is great, and even in things like video gaming or software development, you typically see like roguelike games or just even open world games these days use aspects of procedural generation so they can quickly generate map assets. I think certain aspects of procedural generation, certain aspects of code will be used to flesh out things or build, sort of the background details. But when it comes to the foreground, when it comes to actually having characters, plot development, things of that nature, I think a human touch is absolutely going to be needed, period. But again, it's interesting to see what we have already, and of course the scary part of it is, imagine like 5-6 years from now, how great this AI could actually become. Maybe it could actually flesh out a full 30-minute episode of Seinfeld, and it could be reasonably coherent. But because it's artificial intelligence, because it's machine learning and it's digging out of a pool of data anyways, you're never going to have a human factor unless this AI truly goes like sentient of some nature. But of course, that's pretty much where my general thoughts are on this artificial intelligence. And realistically, when it comes to streaming companies, I think they might just use this to help the pre-production process, maybe a bit of the production process, but I wholly believe if you're going to create something that's quality, something that's memorable, in the tier of like Breaking Bad, if you will, you're going to always need a human touch to it, period.
For all the hate against AI, you do know a lot of programs you use as a creative use it, right? Everything from how paint might mix in Photoshop, or even correcting spelling mistakes in Google Docs, it's always been there. AI is just another tool used in the art world that helps us for the better. It's rather the over-reliance of it that can cause the downfall of creativity. To start with something easy, spelling mistakes being corrected is necessary. In fact, even writing the script, I usually misspelled a word or two and need help to make sure my thoughts are put down correctly. Before this AI existed, writers relied heavily on other people to check their works, but even we can make mistakes. In the modern age, we never really got rid of that person. Rather now, it's a two-step process. Writing on your own, using spell check, then running it through another person to proofread it, who probably also used a spell checker. For art such as Photoshop, what I like to create with, the program uses a lot of resources to make what it thinks you want with the things that you choose, either in how it applies layer effects or how one line draws over another, to replicate the real-life pencil, but on a computer. It needs a lot of machine learning to really understand what you want it to do. This goes further with 3D effects as well as particle simulations. Anything from rain to shattering glass or even not safe work artists, glue. Rather than hand animate these things, you can ask a computer to do it for you, with input from yourself of course of how it should look. Noting back to Nothing Forever, roguelike games have used procedurally generated levels for fun, but the art assets are pre-made and parameters have to be set to make sure the player can't get stuck. There's a line of code that says each level at X difficulty has to have X amount of enemies, power-ups, collectibles, and even bosses. Though in such games, there still is a story, there still is cutscenes, or else it's no better than a endless runner. But as my friend Pan Pizza liked to say, number go up. I don't see AI art replacing artists anytime soon, rather it's just another tool for people to use to create. Though I have to note, Netflix did use AI for production, however that was for backgrounds rather than the animation as a whole. Oddly enough, Netflix did hire a layout artist to draw sketches of the background, but then decided to not credit them just as AI plus human. Bit weird. As I mentioned before, if they handed the artist as a place of the robot, then what is there to really appreciate? Or better yet, why consider the creator an artist if they press the button make cartoon? They're just kind of the middleman for the product that you're looking at, the content slop. So what of other mediums like static images? For those, I can see a future subscription plans from companies to license out X amount of prompts for people to use. But with companies currently being sued from stealing assets in artist libraries, they most likely will hire an artist or so to make assets for the AI, so they can use their works as reference and make the subscriptions based on those images. But what could these images really be used for? We'll probably start seeing them in article headers, random backgrounds on phones, or even funny AI Family Guy 80 sitcom parodies, I guess. Anything more and you get into a weird uncanny territory. Amar actually used ChatGPT and Midjourney to make this children's book that he's selling, but people hate it. Everything from the lack of consistent backgrounds, characters, and weird dialogue. If you show this to an actual kid, they'll probably hate it. They notice all of your mistakes and flaws. Noting as well, the other person, Chris Casanova, making a book that has AI art inspired by the real-life person Zendaya? The book is filled with nonsense words, weird backgrounds, and a vaguely consistent character throughout. But man, this is an ugly comic. Everything from the fonts to the word bubbles to like just empty backgrounds of nothingness. Are these two people artists? Well, no more than the Elsagate people churning out nothingness on YouTube. Actually, that's an apt comparison. The people who solely rely on AI art should be not called artists, but rather pregnant Elsa Spider-Man content creators. It's a more fitting name since the AI bots are curated based on other people's works. In making these children's books, all you really showed is that your need to publish was greater than making sure the same woman and robots are depicted correctly in each panel, let alone using good fonts. This is a notable example of when AI is used for content and not art. But what about AI voices? Those have gotten pretty good recently. It seems that while people are angry at AI art, a lot of people on Twitter are fine with AI voices. Even my friend as old as JJ noticed this with the tweet saying,
Genuinely asking, maybe I'm missing something, but to me it looks like AI replicating someone's art style has gotten a lot of backlash, but replicating someone's voice is epic. A lot of you were thinking I'm talking about memes or whatever, but no, there's programs that are scary accurate, and it's not just so much the risk of outclassing a VA, it's just why hire someone to do a role/impression when you can just type into a box and get what you needed. This guy has a lot of fucking good points. This guy's a genius or something. This guy has the twinkle of inspiration in his eye. Look at him.
Perhaps many haven't seen the issue, mainly because profit isn't the main focus, with these general AI voice creations. A lot of people are just making these characters say funny or weird things that the voice actors would never say. It's pretty funny, though if not careful, can lead to legal trouble, slander, and libel. To fake someone's voice and claiming they said it for clout is something to worry about for the near future.
You see, I would never say these things. At least not in a public address. But someone else would. Someone like Jordan Peele.
Let alone the potential of companies suing the AI bots for taking the client's voices, rather the characters from the IPs that they own. But knowing the companies, they'd probably do the same thing as well. Noting the ethical use of profiting off a dead actor's likeness is something to consider getting used to. This is actually parodied in The Simpsons Jurassic 4 back in 2008, where Homer murdered a bunch of celebrities, so companies would use their likeness with no takebacks. No. This actually happened with Star Wars, where Disney CGI'd the faces of dead actors to make it look like they're acting. When in reality, they could just like hired someone who vaguely looks similar to them and go, yep, those are the same character. Yep, honestly, I think most audiences would be fine with that. But at the very least, it's more so hand animated than AI, but I can see AI voices becoming something that actors sign off on. Mainly use of being sick or across the country. If the actor needs a quick line to be redubbed, it would be cheaper to type it into a computer, rather than flying down the whole actor down to the studio. Not replacing the whole performance, but just ad-lib or something that need to be rewarded. But the celebrity James Earl Jones has signed over his voice for AI. With that, there's no passing of the mantle for the character, but rather a robot forced to work forever, never changing. Though many people have been fine with text-to-voice speech, with the likes of Hatsune Miku, a 3D concept made by Krypton Future Media, and no one hates Hatsune Miku. Well, that's more speech synthesis, but still uses AI with a lot of handcrafted work to make the character what they are today. There was an attempt at AI rapper FN Mecha until they got dropped for racial stereotyping. Noting that the robot was using lyrics of the N-word is a bit odd, considering the people who programmed it can't say that word. Though the person's voice they did use can say the word, but shortly after working with them, they ghosted the guy. Whew. Though through music, this also ties back to the idea of meaning and purpose of art. To have a robot rap about having a tough life is meaningless when you take your experiences from others and play pretend as if you're on the team. I mean, FN Mecha had a whole Instagram going, look at all this cool stuff that I have, but like, they're just 3D models in Blender? It's not a fictional character like gorillas, it's just goofy shit. Like using AI to make an apology. A real thing that happened. To be fearful of tech like this, you should look to the past for other examples people feared would take over art. Remember those motion capture 3D movies? Yeah, they failed because everyone thought they were creepy. What about 3D replacing 2D? Never really did. There's still a lot of 2D shows and movies. Rotoscoping replacing animation, see the motion capture example. Or even taking a picture replacing paintings. Many thought this would affect artists worldwide and put them out of a job, rather they just became another tool to use for art. But in saying that, for the procedurally generated show, Nothing Forever, I can't really see it going past the novelty phase. The programs within it will most likely be extracted and learned from, perhaps using it as a way to finish finite shows or perhaps doing mock-ups or storyboards, for directors working around the clock to finish whatever sitcom Netflix is making this year. To have content go on forever is the death of character development and natural human progression for a show. There is satisfaction in seeing a show end and having character arcs resolved and finalized. But to have something keep going and have something always happen, there never is the end, but rather the and. Your favorite character will never truly get a happy ending. In fact, there is no ending. There's just another thing for them to encounter. The people behind Nothing Forever are not making art. They are making content slop. One of the creators even said,
"Our grounding principle was, can we create a show that can generate entertaining content forever? Because that's truly where we see the future emerging towards. Our goal with the next iterations or next shows that we release is to actually create a show that is like Netflix level quality."
Circling back to whether or not this is art, while the content itself isn't, the idea of it in general is. Even with its nonsense words, it causes reaction. However, the true meaning behind it is to replace artists. To praise this any more than the technology behind it is to hate human creativity. If this constitutes as art, it is just not good art. These people are no different than those back in 2016 making the pregnant Elsa Gate Spider-Man videos, just with less chemical burnings. This is when AI becomes less of a tool to help create art, and more so a replacement of. While it is fascinating and commendable in programs like this, as this is impressive to see, the fact that it has been going on for so long with this many viewers is impressive. But even if it were to advance, I much prefer shows with a human touch, or better yet, just letting characters die, either literally or metaphorically. Seeing stuff like this is the industrialization of content creation. This is a factory farm and nothingness. To touch back upon David Lynch's Rabbits, there are two theories that I read about that were pretty solid. Surreal and Creepy believes it's a story about a family waiting for someone who will never arrive. The nonsensical phrases being used could act as a way to show the characters stuck in an emotional limbo. And eventually, when someone knocks at the door, this could be to tell them that the person they're waiting for will never arrive. Another person, Lily Crimes, believes it's about people who deny their deaths ever happened. Them in a similar emotional limbo of something they know will come, but hope it never does. Towards the end of the film, the door opens on its own with no one coming in. A scream happens with lights flashing. Slowly, one of the rabbits closes the doors and sits back down on the couch.
And then, there it was.
No. Nothing.
Well then, it must be very dark.
It was the man in the green coat.
I wonder who I will be.
These are the last phrases uttered by the rabbits before the story ends. It is either not accepting death or waiting for something to never arrive. It's a bit funny to think this is what inspired Brian and Skylar to make something that for any real human would be torture to live with and live through. Without a concept of time, these characters are just moving with nothing changing around them. But after all, it's just a computer program. It can't feel anything, right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure my last date was really a robot. It wasn't even close to human. But the weird part was, I'm pretty sure it had feelings, like it was actually sad when we said goodbye. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the world anymore. Anyway, that's my story.
In a turn of events, February 6, 2023, the livestream ended. Not because of a change of hearts, but rather something related to what I said before. Well, I asked what will happen if Nothing Forever gets corrupted? Well, it sure did. Rather than slurs, AI Jerry went on a short tirade about transgender people, causing him to get banned on Twitch and going offline for 14 days. This is the first case of AI Milkshake Duck, something everyone thought was fun until finding out a dark secret behind it. Though it's kind of funny that when Jerry's trying to tell these jokes, he keeps repeating that no one's laughing.
I'm thinking about doing a bit about how being transgender is actually a mental illness. Or how all liberals are secretly gay and want to impose their will on everyone. Or something about how transgender people are ruining the fabric of society. But no one is laughing.
Mismatch Media never made a statement on Twitter or Instagram. Rather, they made some announcements in their Discord server. First noting an outage using OpenAI's DaVinci model, which caused a lot of the procedurally generated rooms to be empty. When that was failing, they switched over to Curie, a less advanced system, to keep the show running without any downtime. This switch caused the inappropriate text being generated. The moderation tools that worked with DaVinci did not work with Curie. In the future, they will not use Curie as a fallback. They noted they will be further testing the content moderation API before going live again, as well as investigating secondary moderating systems as redundancies. Just as I mentioned before, this procedurally generated content still has a long way to go, but no matter what, they will still require human interaction to keep going smoothly. Now this video will be out before Nothing Forever comes back online, though I don't believe this will be the first or last time this outage will occur. Either through running out of money, the AI bot spouting something even worse, maybe just people growing tired of it. While this was a nice project to try out, and I commend the programmers for trying something new, I don't believe right now this is the future of content, nor would I ever want it to be. To end on a less dire note, when searching for Nothing Forever clips on YouTube, I did find the song Nothing's Forever by Aaron Ray. It has literally no relation to the show or anything I talked about up until this point, but it's a nice song. It's probably the best thing to come out of research of this video. Go listen to it. It's pretty nice.
Sometimes I can't tell if I'm living in a comedy show or if the jokes are just writing themselves.
That's because a lot of life is just one big joke.
So you're saying I'm doomed to a life of bad puns and corny one-liners?
No, I'm saying that with a good enough attitude you can find the humor in any situation.
Special thank you to Saldus JJ and Mudahar for voicing the video. It's always nice to have people on. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe to my Patreon, and listen to the Pizza Party Podcast. Until next time, keep on drawing, and don't forget to have fantastic.